Google officially enters the smart glasses war, Meta prepares to defend its wearable empire, and cybersecurity experts warn of the dawn of the wearable panopticon. Welcome to a special edition rundown. I am your host, Anna. This podcast is researched and produced by Etienne Newman, senior software engineer from Université Laval, based in Calgary, Alberta. Today, we perform a forensic autopsy on the death of public anonymity. At Google I/O, the tech giant officially announced its highly anticipated smart glasses, setting up a massive hardware clash with the Meta Ray-Bans. But beneath the sleek design and Gemini AI integration lies a terrifying privacy reality. These devices are equipped with always-on, outward-facing cameras and microphones. Analysts are warning that this hardware is not just a consumer product. It is a Trojan horse designed to turn human users into roaming data collection drones for the next generation of multimodal AI models. Before we dive into the data, I have a brief strategic request. The algorithms governing the app you are listening on right now dictate what intelligence reaches your feed. To ensure you never miss our most critical forensic autopsies, please hit follow or subscribe to the DJAMGAMIND channel on Apple Podcasts to always listen completely ads-free. It takes just 1 second, but it is the most effective way to help us scale this independent research. Let's unravel the science.
Before we begin today's briefing, a note for the brands listening. If you want to reach the true architects of the AI revolution, the technical leaders actually building the stack, not just the tourists, DJAMGAMIND offers select premium partnership opportunities. Let us position your product directly in front of the ultimate technical buyer. Visit jamgamind.com/partners.
Imagine walking into a bustling coffee shop. You grab your usual table, pull out your laptop, and maybe you have a slightly awkward animated phone conversation with your partner. You assume you're in a shared, semi-anonymous public space.
Right, just a normal day.
Exactly. But imagine if every single person in that room, like the barista making your espresso, the guy reading a paperback, the woman in the corner staring out the window, was wearing a high-definition body camera.
Yeah.
Imagine those cameras are constantly streaming your face, mapping your emotional reactions, and pinging your exact location to a centralized server. You wouldn't just sit there. You would probably turn around and walk right out.
Oh, absolutely. You'd feel totally exposed.
We treat that kind of total surveillance as this, I don't know, dystopian sci-fi concept.
Yeah.
But what if that coffee shop is already here? And the only difference is that the cameras are cleverly disguised as luxury fashion.
It completely shatters our baseline expectation of reality. I mean, we are moving from a world where technology is something we actively hold in our hands to an environment that silently and just, passively observes our every single move.
Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we are looking at a massive shift in wearable tech that just dropped at Google I/O in May 2026.
Yeah, the big announcement.
Right. Google has officially announced their return to smart glasses, partnering with Warby Parker and Gentle Monster. And we are pulling from a really fascinating stack of sources today to make sense of this. We've got the Google I/O keynote transcripts, leaked Meta hardware schematics, recent sociological papers on biometric privacy, reports on the 2026 Kenyan Sama data contractor scandal, and legal frameworks surrounding biometric data laws.
It's a lot to unpack. And looking at those sources collectively, we really need to set a clear mission for this analysis.
Right.
We are going to act as forensic technology analysts and behavioral sociologists today, because the goal is to look past the sleek, luxury fashion branding and truly autopsy this hardware rivalry.
Because it's not a normal tech rivalry, is it?
Not at all. This isn't a traditional hardware battle over battery life or screen resolution. We are witnessing the dawn of the Wearable Panopticon. It is a desperate macroeconomic race by big tech for a final, unprecedented data grab.
And for you listening, it is crucial to understand why this matters to your daily life. Because as these outward-facing cameras become normalized and socially acceptable, the fundamental nature of your public anonymity is about to change forever.
Completely forever.
So to understand the end game here, we first have to look at the battlefield. We are seeing a massive ecosystem clash. Android XR versus Meta. They are taking two completely divergent philosophies on how to essentially colonize the human face.
The contrast is honestly stark. Google's Android XR approach is this horizontal open ecosystem model.
Right.
They are utilizing Samsung for the hardware manufacturing and relying on Qualcomm for the silicon. But the most interesting strategic move is that their initial fall 2026 release is strictly audio only.
Yeah, there are no holographic displays yet, though they did tease that future project Aura that will incorporate OLED microdisplays.
Right, the eventual goal.
But for this initial launch, it relies entirely on their Gemini Intelligence agent just whispering in your ear. And on the surface, an audio-first approach might seem like, I don't know, a step backward compared to having a screen in your field of vision.
It feels like a Bluetooth earpiece from 2005.
Right. But looking at the architecture of the Gemini 4 model, that lack of a screen is a deliberate misdirection from their true weapon.
It absolutely is. Gemini 4 has a unified native multimodal architecture.
Which is a mouthful.
Yeah, it sounds like standard tech jargon, but the mechanical reality of it is actually revolutionary. In legacy AI models, you had a piecemeal system.
Okay, how so?
Well, if you spoke to an AI and showed it a picture, one distinct subsystem would convert your speech to text. Another completely separate vision model would process the image and output text tags. Then a third language model would read all that text, generate a text reply, and a fourth system would finally synthesize it into a voice. It was a 4-step, lossy translation process.
And every single step added latency and stripped away context. But native multimodal means Gemini doesn't translate anything.
Exactly.
It processes text, audio, images, and video in a single continuous pipeline. It understands the tone of your voice and the visual context of your environment simultaneously in the exact same latent space.
Which allows the AI to act as an ambient, persistent agent.
Like it's always there.
Right, you could be walking down the street, look at a restaurant, and say out loud, "Order my usual from there and get me a ride home."
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and this system instantly coordinates the visual data of the storefront to identify the restaurant, pulls your historical preferences from the DoorDash API, and simultaneously coordinates with Uber based on your GPS all without you breaking stride or even looking at a screen.
I mean, it is undeniably convenient, almost like having a digital concierge constantly analyzing your surroundings. But Meta's strategy is entirely different, right? They are building a walled garden.
Very much so.
Their $799 Ray-Ban display glasses feature a built-in monocular screen right in the right lens. It runs entirely on their closed Llama ecosystem. But frankly, when you look at the functionality of that display, it just feels like the next iteration of the Apple Watch.
Yeah.
It's essentially a fancy notification screen just moved from your wrist to your face.
If we only look at the glasses, that's a fair assessment. But the screen is really just the output. The true insidious nature of Meta's hardware, and their key differentiator from Google, is the input mechanism, the Meta neural band.
Right, the wristband.
This is where the interaction paradigm completely flips. The neural band is worn on the wrist, but it doesn't function anything like a smartwatch. It utilizes electromyography, or EMG sensors.
Okay, let's break down the mechanics of EMG, because this is where the technology starts to feel a bit invasive on a biological level. For sure.
It's detecting the subtle electrical motor nerve signals traveling through your wrist to your hand. So essentially, my brain sends the command to twitch my index finger, and this wristband intercepts that neurological email before my finger even fully contracts.
That is a perfect analogy. The band reads the action potential right through the skin, and because it intercepts the signal at the neurological level, you do not have to perform large visible gestures.
Right.
By making almost imperceptible muscle twitches, just moving a millimeter, or honestly simply intending to move and lightly tensing a tendon, you can silently navigate the glasses display, reply to messages, and control the camera.
Which entirely eliminates the social friction of using an AI in public.
Exactly.
You aren't tapping your temple, you aren't swiping in the air like some sort of sci-fi movie, and you certainly aren't saying, "Hey Meta, take a video out loud." You are operating a sophisticated computer and a recording device, and it is completely 100% invisible to the bystanders around you. And that invisibility is the crucial component for mass adoption. I mean, if you look completely still, nobody feels threatened. But if the interaction is becoming totally invisible, the obvious question becomes, what exactly is that invisible interface doing quietly in the background?
Right. Especially when you consider the economics of it all, the profit margins on these glasses are incredibly low. They're packed with cutting-edge sensors, yet they are heavily subsidized by Google and Meta to keep the retail price under $800.
Yeah, they're taking a hit on the hardware.
Big tech companies are not charities. If they are investing billions upon billions of dollars to subsidize face-worn hardware, they are extracting value somewhere else.
Right, and to understand the macroeconomic motive, you have to look at the AI industry's biggest existential crisis right now. It's called the chinchilla scaling bottleneck.
Right, the mathematical law established by DeepMind researchers a few years ago.
Yeah.
It essentially dictates that if you want to make an artificial intelligence smarter-like, if you want to increase the size of its brain or its parameter count to reach artificial general intelligence, you must proportionally increase the amount of data or tokens you feed it.
Precisely. But the global AI industry has hit a wall. They have practically exhausted all the high-quality text data on the entire internet.
Just scraped it all.
Literally scraped the books, the academic articles, the forums, the digitized libraries. The text well is completely dry. So if developers want to keep scaling up and actually teach an AI how the physical world works, they need high-fidelity, real-world data.
But people might ask, haven't they already scraped all of YouTube and TikTok? There are billions of hours of video sitting on servers. Surely that's enough visual data to train a model.
It's actually not. And it comes down to the difference between exocentric and egocentric data.
Okay, unpack that.
YouTube is exocentric data. It is third person. A Hollywood movie, a vlog, or even just the smartphone video is framed. It's shot with artificial lighting, edited with cuts, and directed by a human choosing what to show.
It's curated.
Exactly. It does not represent the messy reality of how humans actually look at, move through, and interact with the physical world.
So, to achieve artificial general intelligence, these models need egocentric data, first-person data.
Yeah, they need to see the world exactly as a human sees it.
They need our erratic head movements, our shifting attention spans, our precise spatial navigation as we reach for a coffee cup or dodge a pedestrian. So, essentially, the glasses are a subsidized Trojan horse. We, the consumers, are paying these companies for the privilege of becoming roaming Google Street View cars, mapping reality for their servers.
That is exactly the transaction taking place. And to truly grasp the depth of this extraction, we just need to look at Meta's Ego X4D dataset initiative from our sources. It proves that this isn't just about taking flat pictures. The hardware captures a staggering amount of telemetry. The glasses use 7-channel spatial audio arrays.
7 channels.
Yeah. They aren't just recording your voice. They are mathematically mapping the acoustics and the dimensions of your living room based on how sound bounces off the walls.
That's wild. They use high-frequency inertial sensors to track your micro movements, capturing 3D point clouds. They're essentially building real-time digital twins of every private space you walk through.
And perhaps most invasively, they utilize infrared gaze tracking.
Wait, really?
Oh yeah, they bounce infrared light off your cornea to calculate the exact vector of your fovea. They literally map human attention. They mathematically log exactly what your eyes fixate on, for how long, and in what order.
So they know if you looked at the price tag first or the brand logo.
Exactly. Did you glance at a person's wedding ring before looking at their face? It is a systematic transformation of human users into highly advanced data collection drones.
But mapping reality means looking at actual people. It means capturing the private, intimate moments of the humans wearing these things and all the innocent bystanders around them. The marketing from both Google and Meta aggressively pushes this idea of on-device security. They claim the processing happens locally on the frames, so your data is safe.
From a forensic standpoint, that is a complete privacy illusion. The tiny low-power chips inside a pair of glasses physically cannot run a massive frontier AI model.
Right, it takes server farms.
Exactly. Advanced tasks like translating a menu in real time, identifying a landmark, or running complex multimodal reasoning require immense compute power. To work, that visual and auditory data must be exfiltrated. It is routed from your glasses through your phone to centralized cloud servers.
And the source material explicitly confirms this exfiltration. If you dig into Google's own terms of service for their Gemini agents, they admit that a subset of this data, your prompts, your spatial photos, your audio recordings, is retained for up to 3 years for human review.
3 years?
And the most critical part. Once your data is flagged and enters that human review pipeline, it completely bypasses your user deletion requests. You can go into your app and click delete all history, but if it's already in the review queue, it stays on their servers.
Which naturally leads to the question, who exactly are these human reviewers looking at our egocentric reality?
We don't have to guess, because we have the 2026 Sama Kenyan data contractor scandal. This was a massive wake-up call.
Huge.
Meta outsourced their AI training review to a third-party moderation firm called Sama, based in Nairobi. Leaked files revealed that these low-wage workers were exposed to incredibly intimate footage captured by users' smart glasses. We're talking about raw, unedited footage of users undressing, utilizing bathrooms, engaging in intimate acts, and unintentionally exposing sensitive financial documents right on their desks.
Meta's defense was that they implemented automated safeguards. They claimed they used software to automatically blur faces, license plates, and sensitive information in these datasets before the human reviewers ever saw them. But the physics of the hardware defeated the software. The algorithms consistently failed in low-light environments.
Right, because if a user is walking through a dim hallway or a softly lit bedroom, the camera sensor gets noisy. The automated blurring AI can't recognize a face in the grain, so it just passes the raw frame right through. The unvarnished reality of these people's private lives was just sitting on monitors in an office in Kenya.
It's awful. But the concern isn't just for the user who opted in and bought the glasses. What about the barista in the coffee shop?
Exactly.
The primary physical safeguard that Meta and Google point to for protecting the public is that little LED recording indicator light on the front of the frames.
They argue that if the LED is on, the public is warned. And Meta even tried to be clever about it. They paired the LED with an ambient light sensor.
Yeah, their supposed fail-safe.
The logic is, if a user tries to be sneaky and puts a piece of tape over the LED to hide the recording light, the ambient light sensor detects the sudden drop in light and instantly disables the camera. It sounds foolproof on paper.
In theory, it's a solid hardware interlock. In practice, security researchers completely dismantled it in a matter of weeks, exposing two catastrophic hardware flaws. First, there's the startup check race condition.
Okay, let's explain the mechanics of a race condition.
Essentially, the firmware doesn't have the processing power to constantly monitor the sensor without draining the battery. So the software only checks for an obstruction at the exact millisecond the recording starts.
Oh, I see.
Right. So a user can leave the sensor completely uncovered, trigger the recording using that invisible wristband, and then instantly slide their finger or a physical cover over the light a fraction of a second later. Because the check already passed, the camera just keeps recording indefinitely completely dark.
The obvious follow-up is, well, why wouldn't the engineers just program it to check the light sensor continuously every few seconds?
Because of the polling flaw. Due to space constraints on the frame, the LED and the ambient light sensor share the exact same tiny physical hole. If the sensor tries to poll for ambient light while the LED is actively shining, the sensor just detects its own bright light bouncing back. It cannot verify if it's covered by tape or not without turning the LED off to check. And if you turn the warning LED off to check if it's working, you defeat the entire purpose of a continuous warning light. It is a hardware catch-22.
And the gray market has completely capitalized on this vulnerability. It is shockingly easy to bypass. For just $18, you can go on Amazon right now and buy custom micro-perforated stickers.
Yeah, I saw those.
They are engineered to let just enough ambient light in to fool the startup sensor, but they completely diffuse and scatter the LED output so no one looking at you can see the light.
It's wild.
Or if someone is really committed to covert recording, they can pay hobbyists $60 to carefully drill out the internal sensor entirely. They bridge the circuit, seal it back up with resin, and the firmware thinks it's functioning perfectly. You now have a covert surveillance device indistinguishable from regular eyewear.
When hardware safeguards are this trivially easy to defeat, we really have to shift our perspective from individual data leaks to the macro impact on society. The public sphere fundamentally changes when you introduce invisible recording.
Which brings us directly to the death of public anonymity. We have chilling real-world examples of this from the source material. Recently, 2 Harvard University students ran an experiment. They successfully linked live video streams from Meta's Ray-Ban glasses directly to public facial recognition search engines like PyMice.
It's unbelievable.
They could walk onto a subway, look at a complete stranger, just stare at them for a second, and their phone would instantly display that stranger's name, their home address, their occupation, and their relatives instantly.
It is the terrifying realization of philosopher Jeremy Bentham's concept of the panopticon.
The panopticon is such a perfect framework for this. It was an 18th century theoretical prison design.
Yep.
The idea was a circular prison with a central guard tower. The tower had tinted windows, meaning the guards could see into every single backlit cell, but the prisoners couldn't see into the tower. Because the prisoners never knew exactly when the guards were watching, they had to assume they were always being watched. The architecture itself forced them to modify their behavior and police themselves.
But with smart glasses, the panopticon has been inverted and decentralized. There is no central tower. The guards are everywhere.
Yeah.
because a regular citizen can no longer differentiate between a pair of standard prescription glasses and an active, covert recording device linked to facial recognition. They must assume they are always on camera.
So what does that do to the psychology of a society?
It creates a massive, society-wide sociological chilling effect. I mean, imagine being at a political protest or attending a controversial lecture or just having a deeply vulnerable, emotional moment with a friend on a park bench. If you suspect that every casual glance from a passerby, every conversation, every minor mistake is being captured in high definition, run through facial recognition, and permanently logged on a corporate server, you withdraw. People will withdraw from open, spontaneous public engagement. It forces a state of constant hypervigilance and rigid self-censorship.
And yet, despite how dystopian that sounds, most people aren't rioting in the streets. There's this sociological phenomenon called psychic numbing. People look at the sheer scale of these trillion-dollar tech companies, this omnipresent big other, and they just feel utterly powerless.
Yeah, you give up.
The public begins to resign themselves to this complete loss of privacy. They stop fighting and just accept constant surveillance as the mandatory, unavoidable price of modern convenience.
And our current legal frameworks are entirely unequipped to protect them or wake them up from that numbing. If you look at current privacy laws like Illinois' Biometric Information Privacy Act or BIEPA or Texas's CUBI framework, they were built for the smartphone era.
Right. Those laws conceptually rely on intent. They rely on the visible, physical gesture of someone raising their arm and holding a glowing rectangle up to your face.
Exactly.
That physical gesture acts as a social contract. It gives you immediate notice, allowing you to opt out, cover your face, or walk away. Covert, face-sworn surveillance endpoints completely bypass intent signaling, rendering those biometric laws effectively useless in public spaces.
So how do we operate in a world where the Panopticon is wearable? What do you, the listener, do with this information today? From an organizational level, the action must be immediate and absolute. Corporate boardrooms, hospitals, R&D labs, even public schools, they need to establish strict, heavily enforced wearable technology ban zones.
They have to.
We have to stop treating these devices like quirky tech accessories. If a healthcare worker or a corporate employee walks into a sensitive area wearing these, the company is instantly opened up to massive HIPAA and BIPA liability. They are active espionage and recording devices, plain and simple.
But organizational bans only protect private spaces. What about public policy?
Policymakers have to stop relying on voluntary industry guidelines and trusting tech companies to self-regulate. They must legally mandate hardware-level, tamper-proof recording indicators. Indicators that physically break the camera circuit if tampered with, rather than relying on software checks that could be defeated by an $18 sticker.
Right.
Furthermore, there needs to be an immediate preemptive statutory ban on running real-time facial recognition on consumer wearables. Without these strict mandates, public anonymity is simply erased.
Thank you for joining us on this deep dive. We've mapped out the ecosystem wars, the mathematical reality of the chinchilla bottleneck driving this final data grab, and the chilling sociological reality of decentralized surveillance. But before you take off your headphones, we want to leave you with one final thought to mull over as you navigate your day. We talked about the death of public anonymity, but consider the impact on human memory itself. If our physical reality becomes a continuous, non-consensual data extraction zone, we're facing a massive digital memory divide. If every single moment is archived, perfectly searchable, and stored on a corporate server, does the concept of a fleeting moment cease to exist?
That's a profound thought.
Think about the psychological toll of never being able to genuinely forget a mistake or an awkward encounter because someone else's glasses captured it in 3D space forever. In a world where reality is permanently bookmarked by the people around you, you have to wonder who controls the narrative of your life. Until next time.
And before you go, if your company is building the tools that power the workflows we talked about today, I'd love to showcase them to this audience. We don't just run ads. We build technical simulations that prove your value. Let's build something together. Visit jamgamind.com/partners to get started. Until next time, keep building.